If you look at all of the great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, Martin Luther King, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, Bob Marley, at some point, they all surrendered themselves to life. And they threw their arms and they surrendered themselves to life and their souls. And that's when I observed that they transcended their own ego's human limitation and capacity to manifest, and they tapped into another dimension of life. And that's when life began to use them and manifest through them in miraculous ways, in amazing ways. And that's when miracles truly happen. So surrender is to let go of control.
How attached are you to your outcome, your goals, your beliefs, your destiny, to what you think is supposed to happen in your life? If you're sitting there going, Hilary, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I need to do. You, my friend, are in your ego. Now, before you're like, what's wrong with that? I've been there too. There's nothing wrong with your ego. There is the good and the bad side to it. But from time to time, even I have to remind myself that this is not where I need to be. It's not serving me, because when you are in your ego, in your expectations, you create blocks. And that is certainly not going to help you when it comes to that outcome you seek. So I've been working on this for quite some time, a number of years, and there are moments where something just connects with me and I'm offered a little bit of guidance. And I remember one time that happened when my guest today, Kute Blackson, was on Larry King Live. He was out there promoting his first book, You Are the One, and I was really so attached to what he was saying. He's a transformational leader. He is a spiritual guidance. He is a best-selling author, and his story is just fascinating. And then he got in touch with me, and he wanted to share his next book, which completely was a level up. And that is about having the courage to let go through the magic of surrender. So I'm going to be giving away a signed copy of Kute's book. And all you have to do is go to my Instagram, go to my social media, make sure you're following me, because there are all the rules there of what you need to do to put this signed copy in your hand. Also, you get first access to this kind of information if you are part of my Thrive Hive. So if you are my Brain Candy newsletter, which is going out weekly, sometimes more than once a week, go to hilaryrusso.com/thrivehive and sign up and get on the list, because you'll hear about the guests that are coming. You'll hear about the giveaways I'm doing, the speaking engagements, the workshops, all of that is happening. And it just gives you first access, which I think is always the best when we're building community and connecting. And if you missed this week's Self-Care Sunday on YouTube Live at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, this was a really powerful conversation that we had, because I did talk a lot about Kute's book and even read a couple passages from it. And the whole idea of the Self-Care Sunday series, which I'm so proud of, is that I pick a theme from the week prior. That's something I had been through, something that I had been thinking about doing, or even the podcast guest that's coming up, and try to work it into a challenge for your week ahead. And then, of course, we end every one of these Self-Care Sundays with about 10 minutes of self-havening, an experience that's guided by me so that you leave calm and connected and really committed to changing your life for the better, finding the joy. So connect with me there as well. Okay, I have some new news as well. I'm making some changes to the Holistically Speaking podcast. And on top of having amazing guests, as you know, this would all not be possible without you. So I want to really give you the space to share your voice and amplify. Share your messages. I love reading your emails. I get them all the time. I love when you connect with me on DM and PM through social media, but there is something that's so amazing by hearing somebody's voice. So this is where we're leveling up. I want you to amplify. That is my word of the year, and I'm certainly embodying it. I'm certainly living it. More speaking engagements, more podcasts, more TV appearances are coming, more keynotes, more connection to you, the listener. And now I want you to mirror that back. I want to hear from you. I want you to leave your voice, your messages on what you love about the show, what you love about a specific episode or a guest. And from time to time, you're going to get a chance to ask questions. Going to get a chance to allow yourself to be free and open and ask questions so that the guest can answer them on the show with your voice. And all you have to do is go to speakpipe.com/hilistically speaking and record up to 90 seconds. And if you don't want to be known, if you want to stay anonymous, you can do that as well. All you have to do is put NR for a name redacted or just leave it blank. But listen, this is about amplifying, right? I want to know who you are. Where are you calling in from? Where do you listen to this podcast week after week? Let me know. Amplify your voice. Use your voice for good. Who you are, where you're listening, and if you are one of my amazing fellow podcasters out there in the world of podcasting, drop the name of your podcast. Let me amplify that too. Let's get people listening to your show. All right, more about the episode. What can you expect from my conversation with Kute Blackson? Well, he shares more about how he moved from his own ego to surrendering when he walked away from the path that was considered to be predestined for him. And it just didn't match his soul's purpose. And it took him on a wild ride around the world and in and out of his thoughts. He shares how both of his books, You Are the One and The Magic of Surrender, were not the books he had intended to write. And when he allowed himself to let go and surrender, that's when the pages started to fill up and really flow and really align with who he is. Plus his one regret and what it means to feel the sacredness of life. This episode's going to touch, it's going to move, and it is going to inspire you. Kute Blackson, what a pleasure to have you on Hilistically Speaking. I have been following you for quite some time, and to know that I have you in this space and share this space with you is such an honor. Talking about letting go, talking about living your life, the self-love, everything that you embody as a spiritual teacher, as a leader in this space, and with so many people that have been behind you all the way, like the big leagues, the Gabby Bernsteins, the Jack Canfields, so many people just have such wonderful things to say about you, and it's an honor to have you on Hilistically Speaking. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
For the both of us being in this emotional well-being space as coaches, as leaders in this space, so many times, and I'm sure you've heard this too, I know I have as a practitioner and a coach, is that you're helping people heal, or you're healers. We're healers. We're empowering others. And in my mind, and I feel like I align with you, because it really isn't, as you said, coming from the outside. I don't have the power to heal anyone else. I don't have the power to empower anyone else. It's really, I'm reminding people that the power is within. The goal of joy and happiness and bliss really starts here as soon as you believe in yourself. So was there something in your life that caused you to shift to where you truly embodied that? Or was that kind of been part of your entire life and being?
Yeah, I think as a child, I was always a very empathetic child, very sensitive, there was always a part of me that wanted to alleviate people's suffering, because I felt people's pain very deeply. And so that was always there. How the journey began for me was I grew up in a bit of a, unusual environment, people would say. For me, it was very ordinary, very normal. Like my first memories as a kid was seeing blind people see. And I remember being a chubby kid lost in the crowd and seeing a crippled woman literally crawling on the floor. She picks up the sand that this man walks on, wipes it on her face, and stands up. And so week after week, I grew up seeing miracles, blind people see, deaf people hearing, people standing up out of wheelchairs. The same man whose sand she picked up would look at the woman in the wheelchair and say, "Why are you in this wheelchair? You're not sick, stand up." And they would go back and forth for a moment, and eventually she would stand up. And so this was my father. My father was considered a miracle worker, a minister, a very spiritual, mystical character. Had 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, had a huge church in London, about 5,000 people every Sunday, but was very spiritual in his way of teaching, in his perspective. And so I grew up in this environment, and my entire life was kind of carved out for me in the sense of when I was age 8, I was thrown into the audience and my speaking career began. My father said, my son's going to speak. This was like someone else choosing for me. When I was 14, my father announced to the congregation that my son is taking over my ministry. And again, my entire life was just carved out and pre-planned and predestined and preset, and everybody was happy but me. And so in that moment, I was too afraid to speak my truth, to take responsibility for myself as a 14-year-old kid. I just wanted my father's love. I just wanted his love, his validation, his acceptance. And my fear was, if I am truly myself, if I truly own who I am, reveal myself, speak my truth, then I'm going to lose my father's love. I'm going to be outcast. I'm going to be alone. And so in so many ways, like many of us, I held back my truth and I said nothing and got caught up in a wave. And I think a shift happened when I was 18. This was like maybe the first of many pivotal shifts. When I was 18, I looked into my future and I had some decisions to make. I chose not to go to university, which was very counter what everybody expected. Out of 200 people in my class, I was maybe one of 2 people that didn't go to university. And everyone thought I was crazy. And yet, for me, my soul was guiding me in a whole different direction. Sometimes what your soul guides you to do won't always be convenient or won't always be what you most expect. But I really believe that when you follow your soul and you follow your guidance, you will always end up in the right place, even though the route that you take may not be the one that you most expect. And so I felt the guidance to come to America, the guidance to come to the US, because I wanted to go into this field and write books and, speak to people. And so I looked into my future again, and I saw that if I took the expected path that was laid out, I projected age 20, age 30, age 40, age 50. As I projected out, I saw that I would basically be betraying myself and betraying my soul. And what kind of success is that, even if I achieve the level of success? And if I start lying to myself now, I'm going to have to lie to myself for the rest of my life. And so that was a pivotal moment of saying, you know what? It's my life, that I'm not going to be truly happy and fulfilled living someone else's life, being someone I'm not. And in that moment, that willingness to face the consequences of my decision and take responsibility and say, this is my choice, this is my life. And that's when I had the conversation with my father. We didn't speak for 2 years, which was very difficult, very challenging. Left everything behind, went completely into the unknown, surrendered to my soul. And long story short, ended up winning a green card in the green card lottery, which brought me to the US with 2 suitcases, knew no one in the country. And so that moment of saying, you know what, I would rather die and fail being who I am. I would rather fail following my truth than succeed living someone else's. Like, that was a huge moment of becoming a man and taking responsibility for my life. Yeah.
And I imagine, with the amount of people that you have helped and you've been on the journey with and guided, and just the conversations you've had, that there are other people that have paralleled such a similar story, not living their truth, not living who they are. And it's so easy to fall into that line, that direction, instead of allowing life to be a falling into of where you want what lives right here. Like, your intuition knows, right? Your gut knows. And that's a powerful step and a scary step. Scary to do things that you think are outside the norm, but it's even scarier when you think you might lose the trust and the love of those who have been on the path with you for so long. So a difficult one to make with your dad, but with your father being a minister. And then also there's the addition to that, which is you have one parent that's from Ghana, you have one parent that's Japanese, right? So you have this mixed culture as well. What was the influence like that on you and your upbringing?
I loved it. I mean, my mother was full on as Japanese as you can get. My father is as African Ghanaian as you can get in the positive and negative senses. And it was, again, I didn't know any different. And
Mm,
so didn't seem any different, but I always felt like I was from everywhere and
mm,
nowhere.
mm,
That I think one of the blessings was I was able to see everyone's perspective from different cultures, different angles, and I didn't feel Japanese and I didn't feel African. And then growing up in the UK, I didn't feel like I was British either.
mm,
And so I really felt more than anything like a citizen of the world. And I think for me, the blessing and the gift of that was it enabled me to just connect to human beings, not to not honor my tradition
mm,
of African tradition and not honor my Japanese heritage. But first and foremost, I feel and experience myself as a human being and connecting with other human beings because I really believe that the soul has no passport, the soul has no
mm.
nationality, the soul has no color, the soul has no identity, and so in that sense, it's really blessed me with the willingness, the ability to just be with people as human beings and see the essence of who they are. And it was so rich because I grew up with a Japanese mother and Japanese food and Japanese grandparents, and that was a whole nother rich culture. And then Africa, which is literally the total opposite, and these two coming together. And I'd go in between cultures. And um, I think they both brought so much to my life, so much like the Japanese culture is so much precision
Mhm.
and excellence and detail and everything in order. And Ghana is very much sort of everything goes as it goes and show up when you show up.
Yeah.
And so having the best of both, I really felt like I had the best of both.
I imagine that helped you find your own balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Because,
then being from the UK and then also living in the US from 18.
mhm.
So now you have UK and US. And then also I pretty much live part time in Mexico. And so for me, I'm a soul.
Yeah.
And I think the more we can all remember that first and foremost, we are souls and we are souls that incarnate into the human experience. And we incarnate into the human experience in order to learn, in order to grow, in order to evolve, in order to learn lessons. And all of life is really the university, the playground for our soul's evolution. And every experience and every situation and every relationship, whether good, bad, up, down, indifferent, is really the curriculum, for our soul's learning. And I think when we can see it as that frees us up in so many ways. So I think we're first and foremost souls, and I think it's forgetting that we are souls
Mhm.
when we get so wrapped up into our identity. Not to dishonor our identity, but when we get so wrapped up into our egoic identity of, oh, I'm black, I'm white, I'm this, I'm that, I'm Brazilian, no, I'm Irish. Then it just feeds into the egoic sense of creating more separation,
Mm,
and we forget the inherent underlying oneness
mm,
that we are. That shared being that is living and breathing you and me is the same source, same energy, same consciousness. And to me, this body is a beautiful, fun spacesuit costume that we get to wear in this human experience in order to interface and interact. But it's not who we really,
mm.
really, really, it's who we are, but it's not who we really are. And
Yeah.
so I think if we remember that as a species, especially at this time where there seems to be so much like separation and divisiveness, we've kind of forgotten that we are one. And
Mhm.
I think that inherent remembering of the shared beingness, that's love.
Yeah. I love that. And when you say that you are the one is really about the internal, yes, it's knowing who you are first, it's loving who you are first. But it's at that point, once you know that about yourself, we're able to give so authentically and truly to others. But we have to know who we are first. So you are the one in from the book is talking about who you are, but it goes so much deeper. But then it's like by showing up 100% yourself, then you're able to amplify and create that ripple effect that we are this amazing collective of souls that are just kind of on the journey. Or as you said, and I watched your interview with Larry King, it's a quest. It's an entire life that's a quest. And I love that you said that, for serving humanity. What does that mean to you, to serve humanity?
To serve humanity means to serve humanity, that it means to serve humanity.
What does it mean to be of service?
But I think that's the question. What does it mean to truly be of service? Because I think real love is to serve someone's soul evolution. And there's a difference between helping somebody and truly serving someone's soul evolution. And many times we think, I'm going to help this person, but we're enabling versus truly serving them. And sometimes now, that spiritual level of truly serving someone sometimes might mean saying no. Sometimes might mean not giving that person what they ask for or what they think they want, or even what we would like to give them, because we know that in the deeper sense, it won't serve their growth. And so I would say truly, in the deeper spiritual sense, truly serving someone is a commitment to the soul evolution, someone's soul's evolution, more than anything. And I think that's true service. That's true service. Even if they don't like you, even if they end up hating you, even if they like you, but to know that, what, this is what I felt true. This is what I was guided to do. This is how I was guided to show up in this person's life, because it wasn't coming from my ego, but it was coming from a deep place within. I was guided to do this. And this, I feel, would serve this person the most. I think if we do that, that's truly being of service to another human being. And that's the foundation, which is different than, let me just go out and help a bunch of people. That's not to say don't be of service on a certain level and go and help people and feed the world and, take groceries to the person and do good things. A lot of times we equate service as the action of doing good things. But I'm also talking about service as a place of where you're coming from in serving another person's soul, which is, anyway, let me stop there.
No, that makes perfect sense. And while you were talking, the first thing that came to mind when you were elaborating on that was ego. When we do things for others, are we coming from a place of wanting to please others so we feel better about ourselves? Are we coming from a place where we want to help others or guide others so that they can help themselves? What are you doing it for? Are you doing it to make yourself feel better? Or are you doing it to teach a man to fish, right? If we put the tools in their hands, and I think about that all the time in the work that I do as a holistic practitioner, I don't want the control over how you're living your life. I want to watch you thrive on your own and just know that I'm standing by and can be there to support you on this journey if you need me to. But you have the tools right here. You have the tools right here, and you can do it. And you might just need a little tweaking, right? So,
sure.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful way to put it.
Right there.
You are the one, right?
People, you are the one.
Yeah.
You're the one.
Yeah. We're the one. We're each the one. And the fact that you're elaborating on the souls too, breaking down those barriers also to allow people to see that they maybe mirroring back at them what they don't see in themselves in the moment, right? I mean, I think that's what we're all here for. We're all mirroring each other in some way. I want to talk about your latest book. You Are the One was your first book that came out, did very well. The Magic of Surrender is now your latest book. And let's touch on that one. What is it that this book is really embodying that's different from You Are the One?
Yeah, I think it's very different from You Are the One. The Magic of Surrender is straightforward from the standpoint that it's about surrendering and how to live surrender in life. And I think in our culture today, we have this misconception that surrender is giving up, that surrender is waving the white flag, that surrender is weak, that surrender is passive, that if you surrender, you're going to get left behind, you're going to be a doormat, you're going to be a victim, that if you surrender, you won't manifest your goals, your dreams, or your desires. I'm actually saying no. That if you surrender, what if you didn't get less, but you actually, in truly surrendering, if you understood surrender, what if you got more, like more than you could have planned and imagined and visualized and made up and created with your own, shall we say, self ego logic. So it goes beyond you are the one. First step is you have to take responsibility for your life. The next step is it's a whole another level of surrendering and realizing you could say that your life isn't just your life. Your life is the life that is the life that the infinite intelligence is expressing through. And so if you look at all of the great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, Martin Luther King, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, Bob Marley, at some point, they all surrendered themselves to life. And they threw their arms and they surrendered themselves to life and their souls. And that's when I observed that they transcended their own ego's human limitation and capacity to manifest, and they tapped into another dimension of life. And that's when life began to use them and manifest through them in miraculous ways, in amazing ways. And that's when miracles truly happen. So surrender is to let go of control, or I would say the illusion of control, because in so many ways, I think we're not really in control in many ways. If you look at the last 2 years, as an example, 2020, we had all of these ideas and plans, and boom, the world went to, this pandemic and fell apart in many ways. And what happened to those plans? And lockdowns, shutdowns, this, that. And so in so many ways, I feel that in the evolutionary process of humanity, it's life showing us, reminding us, shifting us into a whole new way of living, one that that has been based on a egoic, control-based paradigm to one of surrender, to living much more in harmony with soul and truth and life and nature. And so just surrender is letting go of control. It's a letting go of forcing and manipulating life. It's a letting go of how you think life should be so that you can truly be available and open to the authentic life that is seeking to happen. It's a taking the limits off of life. And I think that surrender is the most powerful thing that we can do as human beings when we understand it. It's the key to the next level of manifestation. And I think it's the real password to freedom if we really understand what surrender is. It unlocks that next level of greatness within us.
I have to 100% agree with that. I've noticed that when I've started to let go of the control, or like you want what you want when you want it. You're like, I want it now.
Yes.
I want it yesterday. It causes so much havoc and stress in your body. You're waiting for the thing to happen. It's not happening. Then you're frustrated. Then you're stressed. When will it happen? The thing is, I've noticed just in my own transformation, in my own shifts in life, that when I just put it out there and trust, like all's well, everything's happening for the highest good, right? Like, and just know that the list, and I remember learning this from like Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, the whole idea of like creating the, and I have it up on my wall, I'm looking at it right now, like the whiteboard of like the things I have to do. I have to pay my bills. I have to pay my rent. I have to do my laundry. Then the list of like what the universe, or whatever you believe in, universe, source, ancestors, make that your middle list. That list gets done a lot faster than the list I have to finish if you just let go of the control. And by writing down and being intent, like having intention of those things that you desire, they will happen if you just let go, put it out there, and start thinking of what you do want rather than what you don't want. Because then you just get more of that. It's like,
Yeah, I would say they might happen.
Yeah.
They might not happen, but if you, what I found is if you truly surrender in taking the limitations off of life, then you can trust that what tends to end up happening will be more or better than you could have planned and intended for yourself. Because many times, that old paradigm has been you got to know what you want. You got to get clear on what you want, get specific, write it down, and know what you want, which is great. I'm not saying you can't manifest that way. You can, which is how we've been taught in the sort of self-help world to manifest, like, know what you want, get clear. The challenge is we haven't until now really asked this I that's wanting, who is this I and what is this I? Because sometimes you get what you thought you wanted, and you just kind of alluded to this. You get what you thought you wanted, only to realize that what you thought you wanted wasn't what you really wanted. It was just what you thought you wanted based on who you thought you were. But if you weren't in touch with who you really are, then your goals are sometimes projections of unmet needs, from childhood. Oh, I want that Lamborghini, or I want to be famous, or I want that thing so I can feel enough like I didn't when I was a child. And so then it never really fulfills us. And so the shift in living surrender is a subtle but huge shift. It's a shift of the question. The question becomes more, what is it that life is seeking to express through me? What is it that my soul is seeking to manifest through me? What is the highest intention and possibility of what my life is seeking to unfold as? And just being open and available to that higher intention that is not limited to our own sort of egos, like, oh, I want this or I want that. It doesn't mean you can't have the intention. But when you're really open to the bigger intention and you feel that you align with that, then when you align with that deeper, most authentic intention, then you can structure your goals and your intentions and your visualizations and your affirmations and your money, strategy, resources in alignment with what's authentic. As an example, the Magic of Surrender book was not the book I wanted to write. The Magic of Surrender book was not the book I thought of writing. I wrote down literally 100 clever ideas on a huge whiteboard of books I thought would be New York Times bestsellers, books I thought publishers would want, books I thought my audience would want, books I thought would make me money and increase my brand, trying to be clever. But when I looked at the whiteboard, none of those clever ideas, none of those resonated as authentic. I could have done it. I could have, and they probably would have done okay, but none of those felt in alignment. And the only word that really stood out for me when I looked at this book, if I was honest, was the word surrender. And that's when I knew it was the resonance, the feeling of like something is pulling me that feels real, not based on my ego or the world or what I see other people doing. This feels real. And this was before COVID. This was 2019, before the pandemic. And the timing was perfect because then the pandemic happened and it seemed like the perfect title, but I didn't plan it. And so when I had to surrender to the book about surrender, and I had to surrender to the book that was seeking to be written, and it had a soul of its own. And when I did, I felt like I got into the flow. And so when we truly surrender, that's when I believe we catch the authentic flow of life. And rather than us working so hard to make the wave, we ride the wave. And while it takes some effort to ride the wave, it's different than going to the ocean with a hose and making a wave. If you look at the great surfers, Laird Hamilton, who I love, big wave surfers, they sit on their board for minutes or hours and they feel the ocean and they feel where the waves go. And when they feel the movement, then they go into action. But many of us, we go to the ocean and we take a hose and we're trying to make water out of the ocean. We're trying to make something be that isn't. And that's when we're forcing rather than in flow. And so surrender is living in flow. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It doesn't mean sitting there being lazy, watching TV. It means when you feel what's authentic, then you align and plan and strategize and set goals in the flow of what's true and authentic. Give 100% without getting attached to that outcome.
Ugh, love that. Love that. And I love that you're sharing so authentically and being so transparent about the book that you wrote is not the book you meant to write. Because I think in this day and age, we see so many people, including myself, that are out there writing books, releasing, those first time authors, people making the decisions. I'm sure you are the one is a heck of a different book than The Magic of Surrender, how you went through that process. And
Similar thing happened. I mean,
yeah,
similar thing happened.
did it?
With you other one?
But and so that shows a success because you're living your truth.
Yes.
And not like which book will be a New York Times bestseller, how much money can I make? Look, those are all really wonderful things because we can do more with more and we can serve more in such a way. But who are you doing it for? Right, is the question. Mm-hmm. And I love that you share that because there are a lot of people that I know that tune into this show who are looking to write the book or looking just to live their truth. And that's such a beautiful execution of how you shared it because that magic of surrender, you did that process, which became the book, like basically authoring your life. And I want to mention to listeners of Holistically Speaking that Kute has just graciously chosen to give away a signed copy of the book. We're going to do a little giveaway when this episode drops. So plenty of ways to put this book into your library. If anything, it could be a survival guide. It could be a growth guide. It could be whatever you want it to be to find what is your way of surrendering and manifesting that which you want, that magic of surrender. Absolutely beautiful. And thank you for doing that. I appreciate that so much. And if you're a touch, moved, and inspired by this episode, pass it along, share it with other people. You are doing yourself and others a gift by paying it forward, and putting the gift, the magic of surrender in other people's hands. What for you, and you've been on this journey, well, forever, the minute, right? At least this journey that we know
Since
about.
I was a kid, yeah.
Maybe even longer, right? As long as you remember.
Yeah.
What is next for Kute? I'm just curious.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that are coming, and I think there's a lot of things that I don't know. I have intuitions and I have senses, but not to bore you with details. But I think there's many, many things that are coming. Entrepreneurially, there's many things. I feel even more called to build businesses as an entrepreneur, separate yet connected to what I'm doing. In real estate, in holistic wellness hotels.
Oh, love that.
Developing agriculture in Africa and Ghana. And so there's a lot of projects that I'm working on right now simultaneously that are expanding. And part of the vision is to two things, really, to put into practical practice the principles of a life that is lived in the path of surrender, so that people can see the possibilities, because people think, if you surrender, you're going to be homeless. If you surrender, you're going to be broke. If you surrender, that means just live in an ashram in India and just give up all your possessions. And so part of, I think, what I'm being guided to do is show people well, if you surrender, you can also live an abundant, amazing, creative, fulfilled life in the world and create, and so that's part of it. But also some of the businesses I'm starting in Africa and feel called to, I really feel called to facilitate providing jobs in places like Africa, not as charity, because I think so often in the West, we go to places like Africa and we give donations, and we go to places and we build a thing and we, send money. Great. But I think that the people in Africa need to be economically empowered in a certain way. And to me, that is through business, entrepreneurship, jobs. And I think that's part of what I feel called to create in terms of infrastructure and participating, to really empower people, because, in many ways, Africa is I don't want to say underdeveloped, but Africa has been underdeveloped and neglected for many years. And in many ways, so many countries around the world have raped, pillaged, taken from Africa, and yet Africa is still full of resources and richness. And so part of what I feel called to is help. Like the world will not be free until all people are free. And so I think part of my calling is to really economically empower and develop Africa in a way that can be really inspiring.
Beautiful. Did you see the movie The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind?
I have seen that. I met the guy. Yes.
What a beautiful story. And it just, as you're talking and speaking, it's just, the so many beautiful cultures out there in this world, so many. And it's not that the effort is not to change these cultures, it's to allow them to thrive and continue what is so innately a part of who they've been for centuries. And you have these Westerners who walk in and want to change things so they live better. They live the Western way. And it's like, that's not what it's about. So if we can help in certain ways to help them thrive and those cultures continue as this big blue marble we live on, we can coexist and live well. That's a beautiful thing. And it sounds like you're on that path. So that's wonderful. Can't wait to see what that happens. However, the magic of surrender means that could mean that there's some changes that could happen that are unbeknownst to you at this point, right?
For sure. I'm open.
Yeah. Awesome. So listen, as we wrap this up, I love to play a game with my guest. And just a reminder, Kute Blackson is giving away his book, Magic of Surrender. I'm so elated that you're doing that. Thank you so much. I can't wait to read it myself. And if you haven't read his first book, you are the one. Put them both in your collection. Make it a whole library event. I'm sure there'll be more books in the future. But I love to play a game. It's just basically a word association game. I'm going to do a rapid fire with you. I'm going to throw out a word from everything we've been talking about today. I want you to just come back with the first one word that comes to mind. Let's see where Kute's head is. Surrender. Okay. You ready?
Let's go.
All right. Purpose.
The first word?
Yep. Just one word. What do you think about when you think of purpose?
Love.
Humanity.
Oneness.
Ministry.
God.
Balance.
Life.
Alignment.
Integrity.
Service.
Service. Now.
Soul.
Evolution.
Manifestation.
Mirror.
Oh, great. And the last word, surrender.
Everything.
Yeah, right? Isn't it? Wonderful. That was beautiful. I love watching my guests and seeing where the brain is going and just allowing themselves to just release, surrender to whatever comes to mind. And it was really powerful to watch you. But I want to ask you one last thing. Is there anything that you would love to leave with Holistically Speaking listeners?
Wow. Yeah. Remember that you're going to die.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to leave that with you and to meditate on your death and to feel your death and to hold it close, not as a morbid thing, but it's just a reality of life. I think the degree to which we can embrace death and make peace with death is the degree to which we can free ourselves to live life even more fully. I think so many of us as human beings, we distract ourselves and we live like we're going to live forever, and we're not. Jesus died, Buddha died, Mother Teresa died, all the great ones died. We're going to die. It will happen. None of us know when that moment will come. None of us know how long we have. To me, the quality of a life is not the quantity, the length, but how deeply we live and how deeply we love. And so if death came right now, would you be ready? And if not, why not? What's ungiven? What's unsaid? What's unforgiven? What's unexpressed? When my mother was diagnosed with stomach cancer, which is what inspired the Magic of Surrender book. I got to spend a year with her before she died, flying back and forth, literally every month from LA to London, to sit with my mother in chemo and hold her hand and talk about nothing and take walks and do nothing. All the things I thought I was too busy to do because I was so intent on inspiring humanity. And I didn't have time to just hang out and have a cup of tea doing nothing with my mother, that during this time, when I realized she was dying, and I saw that every conversation literally could be the last conversation. Every dinner I had with her could literally be the last dinner. Every message she sent me could be the last message I ever got. It put a lot of things in perspective. And my only regret in life was, like, why did I wait till she was dying to savor these moments? And so if there's anything I want to leave people with is feel your death, because when you feel your death, it gets you in touch with the preciousness, the sacredness of life and the sacredness of every moment. Like when you die, you can't go to God or whatever you believe and say, give me a refund on those 2 years that I wasted in that relationship. It's gone. And so every moment is precious. It's sacred. It's holy, it's extraordinary. There are no ordinary moments. And so how would you need to live with no regrets? And really remember what's truly important in your life and live that every day.
Oh, that just resonates with me so deeply. As someone who also lost a parent, I remember thinking, like, every moment, it's like, I look at my mother now and my father's gone 20 years this year, that last remaining parent, LRP is what my brother and I call it, because we have to save her and nurture her. But it's not just her, it's ourselves. And then how we want to show up in this world, because we only have these two bookends that exist. That time in between is what matters, instead of waiting till you're on your deathbed, wondering, how do I want this story? How do I wish this story had gone? So powerful, Kute. Thank you so much for your time, your gift, your wisdom, and just being you. And I can't thank you enough for sharing this space with us on Holistically Speaking.
Thanks for having me.
If you want a chance to win a signed copy of Kute Blackson's book, The Magic of Surrender, all you need to do is go to my social media at Hilary Russo on Instagram. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss those self-care Sundays, and follow the instructions for a chance to win a copy of this book. It is a must-have to put in your library. I am loving every page of this book. Of course, you can also connect with Kute directly. You can go to his website at kuteblackson.com or themagicofsurrender.com. I will also add that to the listen notes. Holistically Speaking is edited by Two Market Media with music by Litbone Redding and hosted by me. Hi there. I can't wait to hear from you. Don't forget to leave me your messages, share your thoughts, ask me questions. Go to speakpipe.com/holistically speaking and let your voice be heard. Tell me what you love, because I'm listening. And I leave you with this. Be comfortable in the uncomfortable, of standing in the tension, of giving yourself permission to surrender, to release, and to just let go. And know that all is well, and this or something better is on its way. I love you, I believe in you, and I'll see you next week. Be well.
I know